to get the night started. Downfield looking for Godwin. Into his hands. And guess which dogs are barking first? Uga, get after it.
Chubb scored a touchdown earlier on a direct snap. Now it's Michelle's turn, running all the way. Gets to the edge. Sonny Michelle will send the dogs home to the championship game.
And Bobo throws that thing in the end zone and
yes! Touchdown! Touchdown in the goal line!
Cambiando estaba Billingsley. Interceptado. Y a ver hasta dónde lo puede devolver. Es Kelly Ringo. Sigue Ringo. Corta adentro. Ringo. Touchdown. Georgia.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Robert Iron E. Singleton, a.k.a. D-Dog from The Walking Dead, or Alton from The Blind Side. Also the former DB turned running back for the University of Georgia. And you are watching Respect the Hedges on the Fan Addict Sports Network. All right, guys. Go Dogs. Sick 'em.
What's going on, Respect the Hedges family? This is your boy, Coach I. We are back in the building. It's been a while, but y'all know what time it is. It's middle of March, about to hit April. That means spring football. So the Respect the Hedges had to come and give you something a little special. And as always, we are brought to you by the Tailgate Kings. That's right, man. We're back in here. So we got a special series for you guys. Normally, every Tuesday at 8, we come in here. We talk all dogs all the time. We thought in the off season we'd give the people a little, information so you can become a better football fan. So you might be the smartest one at the tailgate or the local watch party. So, we got a special panel for us today. We got some, of course, it's still all dogs all the time. So we're going to bring our special guest in, and we're going to talk about the part 1 of 4. Today is going to be rules and terminology. Part 2 will be offense. That'll be next Tuesday at 8. The following, that Tuesday at 8, it'll be defense. And then the last Tuesday, the Tuesday right before the spring game kicks off, will be recruiting. All right, without further ado, man, let's go ahead and bring in the panel. The first person up, man, y'all already know she's the first lady of Respect the Hedges. Always the first one in here. UGA alum, my former classmate. Listen, she spent 2 seasons doing a sports podcast. Previously, we stole her from there, so she's now all ours. We're gonna bring in Shelby McDonald. What's going on, Shelby?
Hey, I'm so glad to be here. Hey, y'all.
How you feeling tonight, Shelby?
I'm good. I'm excited. Let's talk about some football. I mean, gosh, it's so boring now. We only have basketball. No offense to, basketball people and baseball. But let's be honest. We all want a three-peat. 1, 2, 3. That's what we want. I'm ready for football. Right. Let's bring it.
That's right. Our next guest. Listen, this next guest is all about football. Of course, she's a UGA alum as well. She's a special guest. She's a former trainer at 2 SEC schools, not one. One of those being UGA. She's a physical therapist, avid dog fan. She raised 2 boys. One of those boys is now a part of the UGA equipment staff. Listen, we got all kind of insights for you. Y'all know how we bring it. She was a former Walton High School Touchdown Club president. She's a current board member of the Atlanta Touchdown Club. And this season, she will be the resident Respect the Hedges correspondent on game days. That's right. Let's bring in Hina Patel. What's going on, Hina?
Hi, everyone. I've come strapped up. Oh, wait. Wrong show. I mean, suited up. Let's go, dogs. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Can't wait for this season. Can't wait for this season. Let's do it.
That's right. That's right. And we got one more guest. I told y'all we're going to be talking rules and terminology. Listen, as football fans, as sports fans, we yell for our team. We cheer for our team. Not all the time getting it right. You know what I'm saying? And we give these guys a hard time. Some of us call them the zebras. Some of us call them the stripes. But they are the referees, the people that make the game go. And we have our own referee in here today. Of course, as you know, keeping with the theme, he is a UGA alum. One of my friends, listen, man, he stayed on the same hall with me, man. That's for another show, another day. A lot of stuff we could get into.
That's the after dark. That's the after dark.
That's one of them respect the hedges after dark things. So we're gonna keep it PG and keep it moving. This guy, listen, he has all kind of refereeing experience, 22 years of basketball, 18 years of football, 15 years of lacrosse, from little league to semi-pro. Let's bring on my boy Julius Milton. What's going on, Milton?
Russell Hall, 3 West in the house, baby.
That's right, baby. 3 West in the building.
That is an after dark. That's just after dark.
I've been on 3 West before. That's why she said
Stop.
that's all right. We keep it
I'm just saying it's after dark. This is
Oh, she
we
had to
can't.
creep on 3 West.
Listen.
So listen, man, we got a referee in the house, so he can fact check some of these things, and y'all go ahead and start getting your questions ready, man. Put them in the comments. We want to feature your questions just as much as the topics that we want to talk about. I see we got some guys and gals already in the building. We got our resident Respect the Hedges co-host, Shawty Parker. What's going on, Shawty? Appreciate you showing up for us, dog. All right, and if I say some people's name wrong, you might have to help me.
I got you.
All right, so this is Payal Desai.
Pile.
Payal Desai. He said, "What up, Hina?"
Pile?
Look at Hina bringing the people. Let's go. All right, now help me with this one.
Brijesh.
Nice. Brijesh says, "Nice helmet, Hina."
Right.
Look at Hina bringing all the people. Look at Pinky in the building. Say hi, Hina. Look at Lance is in the building. What's going on, Lance? Lance say, hey, y'all. That's right, man. We're going to go ahead and get it started. Listen, we want people to ask questions because a lot of times people act like they know and they won't want to ask questions because they don't want to be the person at the party that don't know what offsides is or whatever it is. I'm going to actually start with one of my questions, and this is a legit question because a lot of times, Julius, when I'm looking at the TV, I'm like, he did this, but the referee say he didn't do this. And it is a football move after a catch. After the receiver catches it, I feel like if the dude turns around, he takes a juke to the right, juke to the left, that's a football move. So what exactly is a football move, Julius?
So that's a good question. And to be honest with you, the football move, so some of the rules we're going to talk about, some things are going to be subjective, and they're going to be based on the opinion of that official at that time. So a clear football move is when a receiver has gathered himself and actually makes a move with the ball and control towards wherever he's trying to go. So whether he's running towards the sideline or towards the goal line, he has to have complete control and make his own move without being forced or pushed in the direction that looks like he's attempting to go. So case in point, catches the ball, turns. As soon as he turns, he might have took a step in his turn, but he's still gathering the ball.
Okay.
Gets hit, loses the ball. That's not a football move just because he took a step. He has to take a step with full control before the ball is dislodged, and you don't have a fumble in that case. You got an incomplete pass. And that's a very common question. So you come in, the referee coming in like that, incomplete pass. It's because the referee thinks that he did not make a football move, and a football move means he has complete control of the ball.
And I think that where, like, even for me, that's where some of the confusion come in. Like you said, he made a move, but he didn't have total control of the ball. So the referee was watching for the total control before he made the move. So I get it. We got more people checking in. This is lovely. Where did we leave off? Hold on, man. Let me recognize our people, man. We got to recognize our people. So we got Mr. Scuba Q say, give him the business, Shelby. So we got Anita. Anita says, hi, everyone. That's right. Tina in the building says, Hina, go girl. Shawty say the NFL don't even know what a football move is.
Can I comment on that real quick?
Go ahead.
My uncle is just retired from the NFL ref, and my cousin, his son, is an NFL ref currently. And I can tell you that the NFL does things differently, Shawty. That's a good point. They know, and the college knows as well, there's instant replay to back them up. So they purposely will officiate knowing that instant replay will save them, right? And if any of you watched the Georgia State high school football playoffs, which was a travesty with that one game where Cedar Grove was cheated, and you can actually say they were cheated. Even refs say that. That horrible call where they called a touchdown and the kid was a whole yard short is why they're going to implement instant replay in the state finals. So instant replay saves referees from being stupid. Now, sometimes instant replays get it wrong too, and it's usually because they can't overturn like the football move like we talked about, Isaiah. So if it's that close and they call it incomplete, they can't overturn it because there's no evidence to turn it over. So,
I got you.
So football is a bang sport, right? It's very fast. Each play only lasts a second or two. And you think about it, that second or two, the referee has to see and process all in about another second before he can make a decision on what's the right play, he or she, because we have a lot of females now that are starting to officiate. So he or she has to be quick to think about what they want to do or what call they want to make or not make before we can continue on with the next play.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hey, we
NFL
appreciate that.
they officiate knowing that they have instant replay. College is a little different. College knows that they have instant replay, but they still try to get it right. You got to think about it. Same way college players are trying to get to the NFL, officials in college are trying to get to the NFL as well. So they don't want to mess it up. They want to get it right the first time. They don't want instant replay to overturn them.
That's a good point. You know, I assumed that, but I didn't know it for sure. You know what I'm saying? The referees like, look, I'm trying to get to the NFL just like you trying to get to the NFL. So
man, you got old 70-year-old guy in college. He
realized
he ain't making it.
Yeah. Yeah, so hey, viewers, y'all go ahead and start putting y'all questions out there, man. If y'all already have questions that y'all want to know about any kind of rule or anything like that, we're going to keep shouting out people as they come in. We got Melina in the building. She says, shout out to my dogs from the swamp. What's going on, Melina? We got Tim Pritz in the building. He just typed the E, but I think that was a mistake. But I'm glad you in the building. My guy AP in the building, Track Dog. That's right, Track Dog. All right, we got Anae.
Yep.
Anae
right.
in the building. She says, hi, Hina. Look at Hina bringing the people. That's right. All right, Shelby, do you have a question that you have always wondered about, a rule that you got for Julius?
But you didn't already text me at any point.
I understand that, but we're on the show now. We don't have to talk. First of all, let me be very clear. Julius and I have known each other for almost 30 years. So this back and forth is what we do all the time. So I'm not taking it personally, so y'all don't fight him later. Okay? Because AP is my dog, and he'll fight somebody for me. Something that I know that the call is holding, because I see where they throw the flag. What is holding? How do you determine what holding is? I think that's a question that especially our 101 audience wants to know.
Yeah,
so
offensive holding. So I'm glad.
Offensive holding. I'm so sorry.
So first of all, holding's on every play. Somebody's holding somebody on every play. Somebody's hugging each other or dancing. So holding, first of all, is when a player is hindering a defensive player from being able to get to the ball, not the runner, but to the ball, and causing a disadvantage to that defensive player. So again, that's hold on every play. Somebody's gonna see, and if you think about UGA, 100,000 people are gonna see some kind of hold somewhere. But if that hold isn't at the point of attack, and the point of attack is where that ball is moving to, if that ball isn't in play, then you don't have holding. It's holding when the ball is in play, and you typically have an offensive player that is hindering the defensive player from being able to make a football move, that word again, to the ball. So football moves are also on defense. And I say that because if the defensive player is just standing there, you don't see this in college much, but you see it in Little League when you got like 8-year-olds picking boogers, and they just standing there and they get held. it don't matter because he's just standing there picking his bullets. He's actually got going towards the runner.
Okay, I did not know that. I didn't know that the defensive player has to be making a move towards the actual, ball carrier or whatever. Because you're right, 100,000 eyes or pairs of eyes, a lot of holding going on. So, hey, that's what's up. That's what we here for. All right, Hina, do you have a question that you want to ask about a football rule, term, or lingo?
I do. So now the coaches can challenge the play. Are there any plays that cannot be challenged?
So college, that's a great question, Hina. College is a little different. So let me start out by saying this. College and pros throw people off. So if you watch football on Sunday and Saturday, it totally confuses people because there's certain things they can do on Sunday they can't do on Saturday. With that said, they are still, I think, defining what those challenges can be. But here are the clear ones. You can challenge things like fumbles, touchdowns, out of bounds, or possession. The football move you can challenge, which would then be like an incomplete pass or a fumble. You cannot challenge penalties, and that drives people crazy.
Yes.
So if there was a hold and you want to tell he didn't hold him, I'm throwing him a red flag. There's no such thing. You can't challenge a penalty.
Oh, I did not know that.
You can't.
Okay.
And the NFL tried that for one season, and that was a disaster. And the people that'll tell you, was it the Rams? I think said they got not the Rams, the
Saints.
The Saints. Thank you.
Yep. For going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Challenge a penalty in NFL. They immediately did away with that because people in New Orleans still ain't got over that yet. They still sick.
Okay.
So you will probably never be able to challenge a penalty because penalties, again, remember I talked about the 1 second that the referee has to make a decision. If you start challenging penalties, then there's no need for the refs. And I know that people out there that say, get rid of the refs. But at the end of the day, you do need some kind of order to the game, and officials do bring order to the game.
Absolutely.
Hey, great explanation, man. That's because listen, and this is a thing too. I don't think a lot of people know that the officials and the leagues implement new rules or changes to rules every year. So some people that watch that Saints game probably still think it's a rule and like, why aren't we challenging that? And like you say, they got rid of that after the first year. Immediately. So we got checking in. Also, we got A. Sullivan say here to support. What's going on, A? We got Shan Sultan say what's good, Hina. Hina brought the people out. I got a couple of questions we're going to dive into after we get some more shout outs. My guy, Priest Perry, listen, #1 supporter for Respect the Hedges. He say glad to be back in the room with the RTH crew. All right. Shouty got a question. He says, is there anything as referee interference, because some offenses draw up plays and use ref as picks? So I mean, I've seen that sometimes. So is that a real thing or is that not a thing?
No, that's a great question. The referee is considered a part of the field. So so a smart ref, and I'm a big guy and that guy's even bigger than me, a smart coach would probably use somebody like me as a pick. And I'm telling you, I'm throwing shoulders and elbows. So if I see a player coming at me, he's about to get this pick. All this. So a smart coach will use, and you see this a lot. Tight ends run these quick cross patterns, and a coach might tell a tight end, run around the ref because he's giving you an extra body. But there's no such thing as ref interference. The referee is part of the field.
Wow.
Now, a coach or anybody that's not deemed a part of the field can be interference. And I know you didn't ask that question, Shawty, but that's also something to consider. So if you got a guy running up the sideline and you got a coach who's so agitated and angry that he, trickles onto the field and he bumps into a player or a referee, that is a major penalty. Because the coach is not supposed to be on the field. The referees and players are supposed to be on the field. So therefore, the referee, in this case, the referee is not a player, so he or she becomes part of the field. So no, there is no ref interference.
There it
Which
is.
is why we pay somebody to hold Kirby Smart back.
The get back coach.
And that's actually right. So when we do pre-games with coaches, we ask the head coach, hey coach, especially if we know it's a coach that tends to come on the field a lot, coach, where's your get back coach? And then you talk to that get back coach in the pregame as well. Hey, look, Isaiah, Coach Fowler, make sure you keep Coach Smart off the field because we noticed in film that he likes to tend to trickle onto the field. So we need you to help keep him back because that is a major penalty if the coach does get involved. Thinking back to Mike Tomlin when he got involved with a play several years back with Pittsburgh, he got fined. The NFL's gonna fine you. College probably won't go that far, but those 15-yard penalties add up, especially when the game is on the line. So
That's
definitely gonna stay off the field.
Is it a 15-yard penalty in college? Is that what it is?
15-yard penalty. That's you always 15-yard is always going to be the most major penalty. So you're gonna hurt the team the most, the best you can, and that's always going to be a 15-yard penalty.
Yeah, and those always come at inopportune times, seems
Always.
like.
Always.
Before we get to more questions and guess, Shawty did want to say, ladies, your hair looks good tonight. He did say that. So.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
Good hair, I agree. All the way down to the shoulders. Long hair, come back.
Yeah, all right. Let's see here. Who else done checked in? All right, Melina has a question. Said, okay, so this one goes. Okay, so the first question is from Ane. Says, do they end the game when it's a big blowout? Okay, before Julius gets to this one, this happens I know this happens. I coached basketball, high school, AAU for over 15 years. This does happen in AAU basketball. For most tournaments, if you get up 20 and you're up 20 with 2 minutes left, they will call the game, especially if it is 8th grade or younger. Now, some tournaments for the high school kids, you just have to endure that blowout. But but for the 8th grade and younger, they do. Now, for football, I personally have never seen this. Julius, can you confirm or deny?
No, and I don't do the little kids that pick the boogers I was talking about earlier. So typically middle school on up, there's no such thing as you end the game with a blowout. The only way you'd end the game with a blowout is if the coach, and this coach I guarantee you won't come back the next week, takes his team and leaves the field. That has to be a forfeit.
And I'm glad
she still have two teams. They're going to play until completion of the game.
Now, I'm glad she brought this question up because we had a game where Kirby Smart and the other coach, it actually ended early. It was like, I want to say it was a Sanford game, but it was almost like they had a pre-arranged thing. They didn't play the whole fourth quarter.
Yes,
it was Sanford.
Kirby and Sanford coach knew each other. There was a relationship.
He gave Kirby his first job, it was 33-0, and I don't know if that was a halftime thing or whatever, but I remember the conference, and it was the first time I ever seen it, and they ended the game like 5 minutes, with 5 minutes left or something like that.
We might as well.
Yeah. So that was a one-off thing, but I like Julius said, that's not something.
That has nothing to do with the officials. That's the coaches making that determination.
Exactly. All right, what we got here? I like it. Y'all keep the questions coming. All right, so Melina, to follow up to that question.
This was my petty question. Like Melina.
Yes.
Good question, Melina.
This is the pettiness of
Melina.
This is what I wanted.
Melina.
Yeah, she said, why didn't a mercy rule kick in effect when we was crushing TCU? Listen, if there's any TCU fans out there, listen, it is what it is. Even the TCU players know what it is. We was up big on them, but no, there is no mercy rule, like Julie said, that the referees can call in football.
I think it was kind of implied when our players were eating wings from the fans.
Oh my gosh!
I think it was implied. The mercy rule was implied.
Did you get in the game?
I might have got a play out there. I was in Cali. Me and Hina was out there in Cali.
Wide receiver. Where do you think I got this helmet from? Wide receiver. Y'all didn't see that.
That's right. All right, to go back on one thing Shawty is asking, he said you can't challenge a penalty, but can't you challenge targeting? Or is that just a referee review?
It's a referee review. So the referees are confirming targeting. So targeting is a little different.
Okay.
So targeting, so you still have a personal foul regardless, but then targeting is going to be determined to eject the player or not.
Okay.
So the referees are going to get together to make sure that they don't have what's considered an egregious penalty to eject the player. So that's an ejectable situation. But if you think back to, I can think several times we've been called for targeting, where the player would lead with the crown, or it looks like a vicious hit. They'll still get the personal foul, but they won't get ejected.
Okay.
So if you think about it, that's what they're doing, Charlie. That's a great question. They're still most likely going to get the 15-yard penalty because it was still like a defenseless player situation or something to that effect. But then targeting is the determinant to whether or not they get ejected.
Okay, so just a broad, I'm glad Shawty brought that up. And, as Georgia fans, we've gotten a lot of this in the offseason from the team that we played in the first round of the playoffs. There was a questionable, from the fans questionable, not referee, targeting call. What, in just a broad sense of the penalty, is targeting?
So targeting is when you are leading with the crown of the helmet with the intent. Now, and let's keep in mind, I can't read anybody's mind, so I don't know what their intention is. So we have to now use our opinion to determine what their intent was. But if the intent is to hurt a player who is defenseless meaning they can't defend themselves, and you typically see that with wide receivers, right? So it's a receiver that's jumping for the ball. They're trying to gather the ball, and they don't have time to defend themselves. That's typically when you're going to see a targeting call. The only other one would be and you see this on kick returns and punt returns. It is not the runner; it's the person who's trying to block for the runner, who's, somebody's trying to tackle the runner, who just happens to be floating downfield, and you got that nasty hitter, Isaiah Fowler, that comes out of nowhere and just leads with his helmet and kills him. He's also considered defenseless. So a player who's not able to defend themselves, and the other player is leading with the crown of the helmet. Typically, it's helmet to helmet, but it doesn't have to be. It could also be, they could be going at the neck area. It could be even at the chest, though it still could be considered a football move. If they're leading with the crown, they launch themselves. So you hear them on the instant replay when they talk about them launching. They launched into the person. So they were truly trying to throw all their energy into that player to hurt them. And that's where we have to make a determination that the intent was to hurt. Then that's when you can be ejected for targeting.
Okay, Justin, your unbiased, your on the field referee opinion, was Marvin Harrison targeted? No. All right. Hey, that's all we want to hear, man.
UGA never.
All right, listen, man. We halfway through the show.
It's not
go
our
ahead,
fault
Shelby.
that Marvin Harrison can't take a hit. That is not our fault.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep. I can't even argue. Shelby and I normally argue, but not this time.
Yeah, so we're about halfway through the show. Y'all keep those good questions coming. Like I say, we got Julius Milton, our resident referee with over 22 years of experience in football, basketball, and lacrosse. We got Hina Patel, former trainer for UGA and an unmentioned other SEC school, and a physical therapist, and her son, one of her boys, is on the UGA equipment staff. We got Shelby, a former podcast person herself. Listen, we got it coming for y'all. So y'all make sure y'all tip the bartender. Go ahead and hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the thumbs up, hit the heart, whatever you're watching, whether you're watching on Facebook, whether you're watching on YouTube. Let us know that you're enjoying the content, because that helps other people get to the content as well. All right, we're going to keep this thing rolling, man. Let's see. Priest got a question. Let's see. Or he got a comment. He says, with as quick as the game moves now, and how fast the players are, even if someone is being held from the ball, could it prevent them from tracking it down from the backside? So let's say we got a defensive end, to Priest's point, like a Nolan Smith. He's not on the ball side, but we know how quick, the players are. Could you call that, Julius?
You're not going to get that call. The only way you're going to get that call is if the player is trying to get away and he's within a reasonable distance from the runner or from the ball. Remember where the ball is, right? So if the ball, imagine a football field, and you have a defensive back on the opposite side of where the play is going. Play is sweeping to this way. Defensive back is over here. Once that runner or the ball has gotten pretty much past extended neutral zone, or they've gotten, let's say, 3 or 4 yards downfield, and he's still over here tussling with the receiver, unless he's trying to, remember, make a football play to move away from the receiver and actually go toward, because sometimes they sit in the chicken fight before they realize the ball is gone. Once that ball is gone downfield, you're not going to get a call. unless it's something completely egregious. So that receiver's going to have to slam him on his head or do something crazy. Now you don't have holding, you have unnecessary roughness. You have you have a different call. But you're not going to get a holding play when that defense. And that's an excellent question. But that goes back to what I was saying about there's holding on every play. So you're always going to have a hold. The ref has to make a determination of if that hold cause a disadvantage to the team. And it's an opinion of the ref. So the opinions of those at home watching or those in the stands are always going to be, especially when it's their team who's been held, the ref missed the call. We get that. But the ref has to make a determination at that moment. If I make this call, I got to make this call every time. Yeah. And it's holding on every play. So now you got the refs in the game when you don't want us in the game. So do you want 50 flags? I guarantee you nobody wants to see 50 flags thrown. But that's what's going to happen if you start throwing flags like that.
I'm glad you said that now you got to call it every time, because as a basketball coach, I always ask the referees to do one thing: just be consistent. Either be consistently bad or consistently good. I just need you to be consistent, though, because that's frustrating as a coach. So, all right, Picky in here with a question. So, what's the difference after you review a play? What's the difference between the call stands and the call is confirmed?
Essentially, they're the same thing. So call stands is the call on the field was approved by the instant replay staff. Call confirmed essentially is the same thing. That we're confirming that the call on the field was correct. That's usually your white hat. So I do white hat as well, which is the head referee. That's usually just whatever verbiage they tend to use. And the white hats in college, so high school refs work their way up to college usually if they have the time they want to do that. And depending on how they were trained up, it's the difference between potato and patata, depending on where you grew up. Some people, I don't know anybody that says potato, but I'm sure somebody does. Wherever you grew up, you say potato, give me a, baked potato. I guess some people would say that. That would be the difference between stands and confirmed. Okay.
All right. We got another one here from Ane. Am I saying that right?
Ane.
Ane, okay. Is a player suspended for a certain amount of games after being kicked out of at least 4 games? So if they got targeting, I know, like, for instance, targeting, if you get targeting called on you and it's upheld in the first half, you have to miss that half and the second half. If it's in the second half, you have to miss the second half and then the first half of the next game. If that happens multiple times, Julius, is there any time you'd be like, all right, coach, this dude is a menace?
So here's that's an easy question for a referee. The referee don't have to worry about that. So when a player is suspended for any reason, they're not suspended by the officials, they're suspended by the conference. So or the NCAA. So in the event of a suspension for penalties or anything like that, the NCAA or the conference is going to determine what the consequence is going to be. So the refs are taken out of that. Now, if a coach happens to sneak that play on the field, which in college is almost impossible, at least at the big level, because everybody knows all the players and TV's everywhere. But if somebody were to sneak Isaiah Fowler on, he's normally number 4, and now all of a sudden he's wearing number 8, and he's keeping his helmet on, and he's got a visor on, and somebody recognizes him. It could happen, but if he gets caught, then the coach is now in trouble, and the school is in trouble. So typically the schools are going to uphold the NCAA or the conference's consequence because the school doesn't want to get in trouble and the coach doesn't want to get in trouble. That's when you start seeing coaches getting suspended, when you start seeing things where the players are doing things that they've already been given some type of consequence for. Okay. So you're not going to see a coach and you're not going to see a school mess themselves up because a player snuck onto the field and he ain't supposed to be there.
Gotcha. All right, Hannah, you had a question.
So as far as the referees are concerned, is there any type of, for lack of better words, a grading system for the referees? Do you get penalized? Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Hannah. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead. Yes.
No, you're fine. I was wondering, do you get penalized? Are you graded? Is there an evaluation at the end of the season? How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. I will take us back to, I don't know how old everybody is, but I know Isaiah and I were watching the game with Georgia and Georgia Tech back in, 1990, whatever it was, when UGA, we're going to say cheated because I was a referee at the time, Tech had scored but they didn't score. Instant replay showed they didn't score. This was way before instant replay. And it was egregious. It was kind of like that call this year with the state high school championship. It was no way that guy scored, but they said he did, and Georgia Tech won that game. Believe it or not, Georgia Tech actually beat us at some point. Well, those referees got suspended, and remember, Georgia played Georgia Tech last game of the season. They were suspended for any bowl games.
Oh, wow.
So you do hear refs getting suspended, they don't get fined. They don't fine refs. We don't make enough to get fined, but they do make good money. Don't get me wrong, but they don't make enough to get fined. So what they'll do is typically suspend them, which is just like a fine because they make good money, especially in these bowl games. These bowl games pay the refs very well. So if you get suspended for a bowl game or you're ineligible to do a bowl game, that's just like being fined a good amount of money. Sometimes $10,000, $15,000 fine, which for a ref can be pretty big.
Oh.
So yeah, to your question and to your point, you can absolutely be knocked down for grading a call incorrectly. And let me explain something. It's the crew that gets hurt. It's not just that ref typically. It's the whole crew. Yeah.
Wow.
So it holds us accountable to hold each other accountable. So the crew is being held accountable for a bad call. Now, keep in mind, it's understood that human error, you're going to make a bad call. We're expected to make a bad call or two. What we're not expected to do is continue to make bad calls. And to Isaiah's point, to be consistently bad. If we're consistently bad or we make egregiously bad calls, then that's when you typically get suspended. That Georgia Tech, Georgia crew I'm talking about before, that's the play that we remember, but they made bad calls throughout that game. So that's why they ended up getting suspended for the bowl. It wasn't because of one play. In that case, it was because they were a bad crew.
So,
good question, Hina.
Thank you. I have a second part of that question, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
I think you answered it pretty clearly, but I'm just going to ask. So when you have those obnoxious fans, I'm not going to say who, in the stands that are, disputing a play call, and we think you can hear us. Does the crowd affect your next decision at all?
No.
Even in the slightest bit?
No, and that's a great question. You know what I love about football, Hina, is that it seems like we're closer than we are, but we're really not. You really can't hear the fans.
Oh, wow.
The farthest you can hear back typically, and unless you have a really sensitive ref, and once you get to the college level, you're not sensitive. And we can't curse on this show, can we?
Let's try not to.
Okay, I'll try not to. But I will say certain people on this podcast have called me a butthole in the past with the other term. I won't say who, but being a butthole helps a ref to not be so sensitive to wherever Shelly is. She's on top right now. Being that way though, Hina, does help you not be sensitive to whatever the fans are saying.
Okay.
A ref is not making it to the college level by even listening to the fans.
Gotcha.
We're far enough away. We're blocking the fans out. Now, you can't block the coach out because typically the coach is right in your ear, right? You can't block the players out because the players are on the field with you. But you're blocking out pretty much everybody else. And the fans, I'm sure you think we can hear you, but we really can't. Now, you can't miss when all the fans are saying, take his whistle, or, take we do that, but we laugh at that. It's funny to us. Again, when you make it to the college level, you're not offended by take his whistle, take his flag. That means you did something right. That's what we think about it, because the other team is not saying that. So whichever team got the penalty, we typically figure out somebody got it right. And it's a 50-50 chance we typically get a call right. Again, there's one time that we messed it up, and even the other team would say, yeah, y'all blew that. But most of the time, we got it right. Somebody's going to be happy with the call, and somebody's not. So, you block the fans out, including the fans that are happy with the call. You block them out as well.
Like I say, great question, Hina. That actually goes to, for those just joining us, Julius kind of spoke on earlier how referees, just like players, are trying to move to the next level in most cases. Like high school refs want to be college refs. College refs want to be professional refs. So that grading system and letting the crowd affect their call, they probably don't want to do that, because like Julius said, that's crazy that if you are a bad referee, you hurt your whole crew. Like, I'd be like, man, I don't want to ref with Julius no more. He be messing up calls.
It happens. It does happen. You do get because you typically stick with the crew for the season in college and NFL.
Okay.
So you are reconsidering working with Isaiah. Isaiah made us look bad 2 weeks in a row, or 3 weeks in a row now. Now he's hurting our chances of going to a bowl game. And keep in mind, like I told you, it's the same way the teams want to get to a BCS bowl, so do the refs. The BCS bowl games pay more for the refs as well. So I'd rather do the Fiesta Bowl or the Peach Bowl than do the Blockbuster Bowl or the mobile oil.
Poinsettia Bowl.
That's right. We got some more questions. Anae, when we were talking about targeting, I mentioned Marvin Harrison and asking, is that the Colts receiver? Actually, we're talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. That's his son, of course. He plays for Ohio State, and that's the one that got knocked out of the game. All right, next question. They coming in. I love it. Y'all keep the questions coming. All right, so Lisa Ingram says, why does a player have to come off the field for a play just because their helmet comes off? And also says she loves seeing Hina in the house.
That's an excellent question. What was the name that asked that again?
Lisa Ingram.
So Lisa, the player's helmet has to stay on at all times unless it's pulled off by another player. So if the player's helmet came off during the play and it was, let's say it wasn't properly, now if it's properly strapped on, it typically won't come off. So to avoid a penalty of 15 yards, and it's actual 15-yard penalty if the player pulls his helmet off, then they have to come off the field, which kind of allows them to reset their pads. It's more of a safety thing. So if they're rushing to get it back on for the next play, they probably have not put their helmet back on correctly. So again, it's a safety issue. The other part of it is, like I was going back to, if their helmet is pulled off by the opposing team, you'll typically have a face mask when that happens. You have ineligible hands to the face or something. The defensive player has gotten in there, pulled it and yanked it off, trying to get through him. Then that player is allowed to stay. And the reason they're allowed to stay is they actually have time to put their helmet back on, because what do you have? You have a flag on the play. You got a penalty that allows the referee time to walk the penalty off, and now that player is allowed to put their helmet back on and reset their helmet while everything's being assessed. But football, remember, it moves really fast, so you don't have time to stop for them to make sure that they're strapped up. And if you realize some of these helmets sometimes the chin straps have 4 buckles, so that's a lot to make sure they get all that back on, mouthpieces in, and all that other stuff before we restart the play. So it's a safety concern.
Hey, good question. Good question. My guy E-Rob, another co-host from Respect the Hedges, he is in the building. What's going on, E-Rob? All right, so Shelby, do you have a question?
I do. Just a quick one. It's not quick. Please explain pass interference, offensive and defensive. Because we see a lot of stuff on TV and they're like, oh, it's defensive pass interference. And I'm like, they're going for the ball. That's not pass interference. So tell us, what is it?
Yeah, that's a great, Shelby. So I won't get too technical with you. I'll try to keep it really simple for the fans, right? So pass interference goes back to kind of what I was talking about before about the advantage, disadvantage. Both players have every right to the ball once the ball is in the air, right? When that ball is in the air, if the defensive player is actually looking for the ball, so the first thing you hear the commentator say is he was looking for the ball. If his head is truly up looking for the ball and he's following the ball with his eyes to try to receive or catch that ball, then the defensive player has just as much right as the offensive player. Okay, I thought I was freezing. Now, the flip side of that is he's not looking for the ball. Then he can still defend the receiver, but he can't touch the receiver. So he has to be very careful. And let me kick it back, not touch. He can't hinder the receiver. Okay. You will very rarely see players running downfield and they're not touching each other. They're playing patty cake or something. But as long as he's not hindering that receiver from being able to raise his arms or turn his body or make a move to catch the ball, then you don't have defensive pass interference. Okay? Now, and I'm saying you don't have it because we argue that should have been pass interference just as much as we argue that shouldn't have been pass interference. So there is a situation that you have to understand the ref is looking for when it's not pass interference. He didn't hook the player to turn him. He didn't hinder him. He didn't stop his route, because then that's pass interference as well. The player's going and he turns upfield, and now you got a guy just come to take him out. That's pass interference. So those things have to be in play. And this is, remember, I told you the ref have to make a quick decision. And because those plays can't be overturned, the ref has to really be right about that, because those plays can be detrimental to a game, especially if it's called incorrectly. So you called pass interference and he wasn't hindered. That's really detrimental. We rather not call it than call it. And this is important to understand, because you will more likely see a ref pass on a pass interference call than try to throw it. It's the same thing. Have y'all think about basketball. The worst thing ever is when a player goes up for a layup and a player cleanly blocks it, but the ref calls it because they anticipated the foul.
All the time.
Football, we don't want to anticipate the pass interference. You got to let the players play. And there's no such thing as a late flag. So the referee can see that happen and totally throw that flag a little late if he realized he played it back in his mind, he or she played it back in their mind. You know what? That was pass interference. Let me throw that flag. So you do see sometimes that late flag come. That late flag is because that referee replayed that in their mind and said, you know what? That was a hindrance. Let me throw the flag.
Okay. Tina, you got to
And
follow up to
the
that?
offensive pitch, Shelby, to answer your question, it's the same thing. So the definition is the same. The offensive player hindered the defensive player from being able to intercept the ball or make a play on the ball as well.
Yes.
Tina, you got a follow up or a different question to that?
Well, so along those lines, when they both come down with the ball together,
Mhm.
let's say, and it's kind of like a jump ball in basketball,
Mhm.
how is it determined? Is it the player who last has the ball? How is it determined who has possession?
Ooh,
I think it's kind of, I was about to say, I think it's kind of like tie goes to the runner type deal in baseball.
That goes to the
so
offense. That's what I always thought.
That's what I always thought. I don't know if I'm right,
correct.
but
That is
okay.
correct. Tie goes to the runner. In this case, tie goes to the offensive team who possessed the ball. So whoever threw the ball, right? It was whoever team was in possession prior to the controversial play. We'll call it that. They're the ones that are going to get the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
So that's why they tell the players to get in the weight room, because when you come down with it, somebody's got to be snatching away and come away with that clear. The defender has to clearly possess the ball for it to be considered an interception.
And I think for UGA fans, you got to see a little bit of that in the championship game when A.D. Mitchell came down with the one hand. Defender had it, and some of the TCU fans that I was watching the game was like, "No, that's not a catch." I'm like, "That's a catch, bro. Like, it goes to the offense." So, hey, CA, our guy Corey Allen, another Respect the Hedges co-host, checking in. What's going on? Say, go Dogs. All right, Shelby, you wanted to ask.
Yes.
Okay.
Explain cut block. You hear it on TV, and I'm like, they never show the replay, so I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
and that's a good question, because triple option offenses always look like they cut blocking.
Yes.
Yeah, so a cut block is a dangerous play. A cut block is when a offensive player, and actually a defender can do it too, but typically it's an offensive player, is going below the waist to block a player who's not able to defend themselves. So Isaiah mentioned the triple option, or those really close running plays. It's legal to do that only when the offensive player immediately goes down on the snap, and they have to go down to the person that's directly in front or directly to the diagonally to them. So if you can imagine a football play, the ball is snapped. If those offensive linemen aren't immediately going down at the people directly in front of them, and let me explain something else. This is a thing called the free blocking zone. So the free blocking zone is between the tackles. So if everybody understands positioning, right, you have a right and left tackle. The free blocking zone is determined by those tackles. So anything between them is legal to cut block as long as it's immediate on the snap. And it has to be that guy in front of him or directly diagonal to him. So you get an illegal chop block, or block below the waist is what you see that called, when there is that pull play or option or sweep, and you got an offensive player that then goes down and attacks a defender below the waist. and they're outside of that free blocking zone, or it's not a player directly in front of them, then that's when you're going to get that call. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, Rod, that's a really good question. Refs miss that. And they miss it typically because the ball is usually going away from the play. It's easy to catch it when it's right in front of the ball carrier. It's harder to catch it when the ball is kind of left the area. And that's, I'm going to be honest, it's bad officiating because the refs are supposed to keep their eyes on a certain zone. That's why you got so many refs on the field. You typically have 7, sometimes 8 officials on the field. And that guy, that person that's officiating is supposed to watch their zone. So if they took their eye off their cone of vision for just a second, they can miss that cut block. And again, cut blocks are dangerous because these offensive linemen a lot of times are 300 pounds. They're big guys. So you take a knee out of a 300-pound guy, you could potentially have a serious injury. So we have to protect the refs have to protect the offensive linemen and defensive linemen because defensive linemen can also get cut blocked. So you have to keep your eyes on those guys until the play is till they've essentially stopped engaging each other. And that's what it's a dangerous one. But Shelby, since you asked, let me explain a chop block too. So chop block is when you have 2 players engage a defender. One goes low, one goes high. That's also illegal. And you see that happen to a really good defensive player. So your real good defensive ends or your good defensive tackles typically are going to get chop blocked at some point throughout the season, if not throughout a game, where it's a dirty play, but they're trying to take that guy out because that guy is just dominating. And UGA defensive linemen have dominated for years. So sometimes they have to be aware, referees have to be aware that, hey, it's a potential that this particular guy might get chop blocked or even cut blocked because he's killing them and they have no answer for him. So the coach is going to get dirty and say, y'all got to take him out.
Good question, Shelby. Good question. We got another one from the comment section. Tim Pritt says, is the pick rule different inside the 5-yard line versus everywhere else? He's referring to when receivers, the most infamous is the championship between Clemson and Alabama in college, when Alabama fans said it was a pick. Clemson said it was a rug play for the game-winning touchdown where one guy goes in from the outside to kind of stand in front of the defender while the inside receiver gets free.
And I'm glad you asked that, Tim, because I meant to mention that when we talked about offensive pass interference. That's the offensive pass interference that is it's still offensive pass interference, but that's when you really see that call is inside 5-yard line. To answer the question, no, it's the same everywhere, but referees are more attentive to it inside the 5-yard line. So typically, and really, let's say inside the 10, you're really looking for the pick plays when you will have an imminent scoring play or potential scoring play. So if I know that this team is really, about to possibly put it in the end zone, they're in a spread offense, then we're really looking for pick plays because that's when you're going to have that slot receiver who hadn't played the whole game. Now we got McDonald in the game, and McDonald is all of 5'3". McDonald's probably going to be the one that's going to do that pick play. Or she's going to be the one to catch the ball because nobody's looking for her and somebody's going to pick for her. But that's when we're looking for that. So you got that 4 receiver set inside the 10-yard line, or you got 2 tight ends and 2 receivers. Somebody's probably going to try to pick a linebacker or cornerback, and the referees are looking for that. So, Tim, you didn't ask this, but to take it a little further, the only way you're not going to get that call is if that receiver has to be looking like he's running a true route. So if he runs and he hits the defensive player and just kind of stop like, oops, you're going to get that call. Or if any of y'all are coaches, tell your players, don't coach this thing where, you're running to somebody and do this. You're immediately guilty. You run to somebody and do this, you're guilty every time. You always
basketball and football.
No matter what sport it is. It could be track and field. You pick the other person up and you do like this, like, what are your hands up for? So don't put your hands up. They have to actually run a route. And if they ran a route, they continued their route, they happen to bump into another player, the referee then has to make that quick decision. No, that was his route. And he was just running his route. That wasn't a pick play. So when you don't see that call, it's because the ref is giving them the benefit of the doubt that they were running their actual route and the defender got in the way.
Okay.
That's when it gets really dicey.
Good question.
Hey, good content coming from our resident official, Mr. Julius Milton. We got a question for Hina. Hina, go with that question.
So it's about roughing the kicker, the quarterback, the punter. Can you please explain to all of us? A lot of times the guy's in motion. You can't stop your body when you're like almost there, and he just happens to get rid of the ball at that point. So, can you please explain that penalty to all of us?
Yeah, that's a great question. So keep in mind there are two penalties when it comes to a kicker specifically. And a kicker is anybody kicking the ball. So the punter and the kicker are both considered kicker. So it's running into the punter or kicker when the player makes contact. It really can be any kind of contact. Now the ref has to make a determination if the contact was because of the kicker. So sometimes you'll see a punter, and these punters have gotten really, really slick with it too, right? They'll punt and then they'll hop step a little extra yard and purposely, kind of cause the contact. You're not going to see a call when they do that.
Okay.
And referees pay attention to what the tendencies are for the players. So the white hat I talked about earlier, the head referee is always watching the kicker or the punter. And they're paying attention to, did that punter or kicker have an opportunity for their foot to come back down without being hindered, right? If they're run into, that means that defensive player was not trying to hurt. Remember, intent. They weren't trying to hurt, but they still ran into the player and did not allow them to finish their kicking motion. That's going to be the 5-yard penalty, and it's not an automatic first down. The roughing is when they literally go in and they're bulldozing into the kicker or the punter. Then you have a roughing the kicker case. Now, same thing with the quarterback. There's no such thing as running into the quarterback. So roughing the quarterback is a different thing. And I go back to, I know we're not talking about pros, but the Falcons in Tampa Bay, that was a horrible call. And I hate to say that was my uncle, but it was a horrible call where Brady was considered, it was a roughing the passer, roughing the quarterback. It's actually roughing the passer. The passer has to be actually passing the ball. So they're not passer if they're not actually throwing the ball. They're a runner until they are in the throwing motion. Same thing with the kicker. I don't care what their number is or what their position is. They're not a kicker until they actually go to kick the ball. So if you tackle the kicker and he's still holding the ball, you can't have a roughing the kicker because he's a runner until he actually kicks the ball. Same thing with the passer. They're a passer until they actually throw the ball. And the other roughing you have is a holder. So the person holding the ball for a field goal extra point, they're also protected. So they're a runner until they actually put the ball down to hold it. So if you've got a really, really fast defender and they come in and as soon as he catches the ball to put it down, the ref has to be really paying attention. If he hadn't put that ball down yet to hold it, then he's a runner until he puts it in position for the kicker to kick.
God, I did not
You don't see that happen often, but it
No.
Yeah, that's a good
Thank
point.
you.
Yeah.
All right. So Shelby, one last question and we're gonna wrap it up. But Shelby, go ahead with your question because I think it's a good one.
You mentioned a lot about tendencies of teams. So do y'all study tape before each game? How do you know what each team's tendencies are? Because you do a different game or a different game and a different team every week. How do you do that?
Yeah, so I can tell you from the high school level up, there's film for everything. Corey, look. Corey, my aunt even said, "Look, leave him alone." My dad said, "Don't bother him." We still to this day haven't talked about that play, and I'm gonna leave him alone. He's just retired, but I won't bring that up probably ever.
After that play, they say, "Oh, it's time to call it quits, dog."
And look, we don't talk about that within the family. So I hope none of my family is watching this podcast. We don't talk about that play.
Oh gosh. I don't blame you.
Don't tell on me. Now, Shelby, answer your question. Pretty much everything from the high school level up, varsity level up to the pros is recorded. So there's film for everything. So yes, referees are typically looking at film. Sometimes we're looking at it for ourselves, and I can tell you that most refs go back and look at our own game film from the previous week to see how we did. But sometimes we will look at tendencies from the other team to see, are they a passing team? Are they a running team? We're not necessarily looking to pick players out because we don't want to be biased. We don't want to say number 8 is always extra aggressive. But we're looking to see, do they run a lot? Do they pass a lot? Because that will determine what kind of penalties they might get. If they're a running team a lot, then you're going to see that cut block we talked about potentially, especially if they run options. If they're a passing team, you're probably going to see those pick plays that was asked about, the Tim asked about earlier. So we do look for tendencies of those players, of the offense and the defense. If it's a defense that they do a lot of, maybe they stack the box a lot, and they have a lot of, they have really fast receivers, then we're looking at, is a potential for a lot of defensive holding early in the play because they don't want the potential to get burnt. Maybe they have really bad safeties. So, we do kind of look for tendencies like that. But we're typically only looking for tendencies when we're watching the teams. We're not necessarily looking to call out a specific player on anything. But we're really grading ourselves more than anything. That's most game film we're looking at is how did we mess up the previous week? So we want to make sure we got it right the next week.
There it is, man. We appreciate it, Julius. Listen, Julius came over here dropping knowledge. We want to thank our co-host guests for the first part of the series, Miss Hina Patel and Shelby McDonald. We all dogs all day. We want to appreciate all the people that showed up watching, whether you asked the question or not, and especially the people that asked the question. Great questions. Listen, me, Hina, Shelby, and JB came up with a couple of penalties we would talk about, but listen, y'all did such a good job. We didn't even have to get to them, and that's what we like. This is part 1 of 4. Like I say, next Tuesday is offense. We will be talking about offense. So we need y'all to show up, show out, bring your comments, questions, tell a friend to tell a friend so we can double the participation. And don't forget to hit the like button, to subscribe to the channel, thumbs up or heart on Facebook, wherever you're watching. And we appreciate everybody. For Mr. Milton, the official, Hina, Shelby, this is Coach I. Respect the Hedges. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs. Let's throw that flag